The chamber hung above a dying red star, light spilling through crystal walls and scattering across the marble expanse of the Galactic Council Hall. Hundreds of alien envoys filled the amphitheater, scaled, silicon, and vapor-borne, each shimmering in their native grav fields. Their voices resonated like thunder in the vacuum-filtered air. They gathered for one purpose: to discuss the new arrival among the stars. Humanity. For 10,000 cycles, the Council had ruled this region of the galaxy. Empires that had stretched across 100 systems had bowed before the unified authority of its charter. Civilizations far older than Earth had accepted assimilation without question. Those who resisted, the Varen, the Mathari, the Kintel, were erased from records and memory. There was peace, but it was peace through dominance, not justice. And now, from the unclaimed spiral on the galactic rim, a signal had arrived, primitive, but undeniable. Humans had achieved faster-than-light travel. A sphere of blue holographic light ignited at the chamber's center. The image of Earth rotated slowly, oceans glittering like glass. The counselors regarded it with mild interest, the way a predator studies an insect. The species designates itself human. The archivist droned, its voice a smooth resonance of blended tones. Population 8 billion. Divided governments, primitive cultures, history defined by violence. Estimated integration probability 100% upon demonstration of council authority. Ripples of satisfaction spread through the delegates. The insected HFY clicked their mandibles in approval. The crystalline sen shimmered with pale light. To them, another obedient species was simply another thread in the council's web. The Chancellor raised a slender limb. Are they capable of organized resistance? The archivist paused. Statistical models suggest minimal threat. Their fleets are localized. Their weaponry, archaic. However, a pause. Every counselor turned. However, the Chancellor pressed. There is inconsistency in their behavior patterns. The species exhibits self-destruction and recovery on planetary scales. They wage total wars, annihilate continents, then rebuild within decades. Their adaptability metrics exceed simulation thresholds. The chamber stirred. To most, it was a curiosity, not a warning. The Tsen delegate hummed. Savages often burn brightly before submission. Let them kneel, and they may serve as useful soldiers. From the shadows, an elder species, the Orav, spoke with a tone of unease. They've mastered war long before the stars. When they reach space, they won't kneel easily. Laughter rippled through the hall, sharp, cruel, dismissive. The Orav had once predicted the fall of the Kintel rebellion, and had been ignored. History was repeating, but arrogance dulled the memory of past errors. The Chancellor gestured toward the hologram of Earth. Then we proceed as always. Extend the accord. Offer membership. Should they refuse, we will remind them of the alternative. The chamber dimmed as the decree echoed through the station. Moments later, across the void, a transmission left the Council's central relay, a voice rich with synthetic calm. Humans of soul. You stand at the threshold of civilization. The Galactic Council extends its protection and authority. You will disarm your fleets and submit your governance to integration. In exchange, you shall receive peace, technology, and inclusion among the stars. The message reached Earth's orbit in less than a day. Across the planet, satellites aligned, receivers hummed, and the message played on every major channel. Politicians debated, militaries panicked, and people looked skyward, realizing they were no longer alone. The Council waited for the inevitable submission. Then came the reply. It wasn't from a diplomat, nor from a world leader. The message was brief, carried in plain language, and ended the silence of a billion watching minds. We appreciate your concern. We'll discuss terms, when you send someone who speaks as an equal. The Council chamber fell still when the transmission was replayed. No fear. No hesitation. Just calm defiance. The Chancellor's voice broke the silence. They misunderstand their position. They refuse to acknowledge it. The Orav murmured. Then they will learn. 100 votes of assent flared across the chamber. Armadas were authorized. Fleets were moved to readiness. The peacekeepers, vessels the size of continents, were ordered toward Seoul. Before adjournment, the orb rose once more, their translucent eyes reflecting the dying light of the red star. "You see arrogance in their words," they whispered. "But I see something older. They are not asking for peace. They are demanding respect." The Chancellor dismissed them with a wave. "Respect is earned through submission." The meeting ended. Outside, in the emptiness beyond the station, the star flickered, its last pulses washing over the gathering ships of 1,000 worlds. The Galactic Council had spoken. Far across the dark, on the blue planet beneath a rising sun, humanity was listening. And though the stars did not yet know it, the age of submission was about to end. The Council's armada arrived at the edge of the Sol system like a tidal wall of metal and fire. 50 battlecruisers, 10 dreadnoughts, and hundreds of escort vessels eclipsed the stars. Their formation was perfect, disciplined, rehearsed. To them, this was not a war, it was administration. They had done this 100 times before: fly in, display power, receive surrender, move on. The humans would be no different. From orbit above the pale moon, the alien fleet projected its authority. Beams of energy swept across Earth's magnetic field, disabling satellites, silencing entire networks. Every transmission, from military to civilian, was jammed by a single repeating message broadcast in every known language. Submit to Council integration. Resistance is futile. Peace awaits the obedient. Below, the planet shuddered with confusion. Skies filled with strange auroras as the alien ship's engines distorted the atmosphere. Governments declared emergency. Every telescope confirmed what was already clear: the stars were no longer safe. Yet amid the chaos, something unexpected happened. Earth's unified command did not panic. The global networks that had been dark for hours flickered to life in a synchronized pulse. A single encrypted signal, indecipherable to alien sensors, jumped between every orbital station and submarine network. The humans were silent, but they were not idle. Admiral Cyrix, commander of the peacekeeping expedition, watched the planet through the bridge's viewport. The creature's form shimmered with bioluminescent plates, eyes pulsing as data scrolled across the command displays. "They are transmitting among themselves," one of the analysts reported. "Primitive code, linear encryption. Inefficient." Cyrix gave a low, amused tone. "Let them talk. It will make their surrender more cooperative." 2 days passed. The aliens grew restless. No surrender came. No emissary rose. Only silence and the quiet rhythm of encrypted pulses from the surface. The fleet's analysts failed to decode a single line. Each attempt ended with corrupted data and systems behaving unpredictably. Their intrusion AIs began to fail, their logic loops collapsing without pattern. Something in human encryption didn't just protect, it retaliated. Frustration spread through the ranks. The Council's protocol allowed patience for diplomacy, but Cyrix's pride outweighed tradition. "Enough," they hissed. "Transmit direct visual to their planet. They will see who commands the stars." A beam of light carried the Admiral's holographic form into Earth's atmosphere. The apparition towered above the clouds, casting a spectral glow visible from orbit. "Humans of Sol," the projection thundered, "you stand in defiance of order. Disarm your fleets, surrender your autonomy, and be granted mercy under the Council's law. Refusal will bring annihilation." For the first time in history, humanity stared at an invader from beyond their world. Every screen, every broadcast carried the same figure, a symbol of dominance that expected worship. But the response was nothing like the aliens anticipated. After 26 hours of silence, a single voice replaced the projection. "Calm, steady, human. This is Admiral Reyes of the Terran Unified Fleet," it said. "You are trespassing in Terran orbit. State your purpose, or vacate immediately." The Council command channels erupted in disbelief. "Fleet? They have no registry. Earth's civilization isn't classified for interstellar deployment." Cyrix froze. "Patch me into long-range sensors. I want confirmation." The data streamed in, no foreign fleets in orbit, no visible armadas, just the blue planet below. It made no sense. The voice had come from space, yet nothing visible supported it. A faint distortion flickered at the edge of Mars' orbit, small, rhythmic, gravitational echoes. The sensor arrays began to spike in alarm. A dozen, then hundreds of signals appeared. The Admiral's mandibles tightened. What is that? Unknown mass signatures. Gravitational readings off the scale. The sensor officer stammered. They're not natural. And then, silence again. The void beyond Mars became still. The Council ships held position, uneasy for the first time. Cyrix spoke with forced calm. Continue scanning? Their resistance will end when they see our firepower. But deep inside, the Admiral knew that the silence was not surrender. It was a pause before movement, a gathering breath before the storm. When the readings stabilized, every display in the alien flagship flashed crimson. One final transmission came from beyond the red planet, carried on a human frequency. This is Terran Command, the voice declared. Prepare to be engaged. The Council fleet's confidence faltered. For the first time in centuries, the conquerors of 100 worlds felt something unfamiliar, uncertainty. Light fractured across the void as space itself seemed to tear. Gravitational wakes flared like auroras over the orbit of Mars, and from the distortion emerged the impossible. Dozens, then hundreds of human vessels dropped from slip space in perfect formation, sleek, angular, their hulls painted obsidian to drink in starlight. The void shuddered beneath their synchronized propulsion, each engine signature marked with precision engineering no Council archive had ever recorded. Humanity had arrived, not as wanderers, but as a fleet born from desperation and unity. The first scans from the alien flagship painted the impossible truth: Earth had not been unarmed, it had been hidden. The Terran unified fleet, forged in secret from the shipyards buried beneath Luna and Mars' ice caverns, was vast enough to challenge an empire. Impossible, muttered the sensor chief aboard the alien dreadnought. Their planet's output couldn't sustain this manufacturing scale. Yet the readings held. Hundreds of warships, each powered by a hybrid core that mixed nuclear fusion with something unclassified. Their energy signatures pulsed irregularly, alive, almost organic. Admiral Reyes stood at the center of the Terran command deck, voice calm as her fleet aligned into combat lattice. Maintain silent formation. They're scanning for weakness. Show them none. Her tone carried the gravity of every war humanity had ever fought. Around her, officers from every continent operated in harmony. Nations that once distrusted one another now shared one purpose: survival through defiance. The Council's flagship transmitted a final warning. Terran vessels, disengage. You are outnumbered 5-1. This is not your war to win. Reyes replied without hesitation. It became ours the moment you entered our sky. The alien commander gave the order to fire. A volley of plasma lances arced toward the Terran formation, bright as suns, enough to level continents. Yet the human ships did not scatter. They advanced. Shields rippled with a cobalt glow, absorbing energy that should have vaporized them. Council analysts screamed through comms. Their barrier matrices are adaptive, reactive quantum feedback loops. No known technology matched it. In seconds, their advantage and power was erased. Reyes gave her first command. Release payloads. The Terran fleet's retaliation was not elegant, it was terrifying. Thousands of tungsten rods, each accelerated to near-relativistic speed, launched from coil guns the size of skyscrapers. They crossed the void faster than light's reflection could track, piercing through dreadnought hulls as if through paper. 2 Council warships split apart silently, their destruction blooming like gray flowers against the void. No human voice celebrated. They fought without spectacle, without vengeance. Every maneuver was deliberate. This was not conquest, it was survival executed with surgical precision. The aliens adapted, redirecting auxiliary cruisers to flank positions, attempting to surround the Terrans. Yet human command algorithms countered faster than any biological crew could react. Artificial intelligence cores, integrated with human neural commanders, predicted enemy trajectories seconds before movement began. The Council's fleet, for all its size, moved like a beast of ancient muscle. Humanity, by contrast, struck like a swarm guided by one mind. Reyes monitored the enemy's desperation through fragmented transmissions, panic disguised as command. "They're losing coordination," she noted. "Focus fire on the command nexus." Within minutes, 5 alien vessels were reduced to drifting wreckage. Radiation from their own reactor breaches painted the battlefield in a haunting red glow. For the first time, the Council's technological supremacy faltered under sheer human audacity. Cyrix, aboard the alien flagship, watched the tide shift and hissed through clenched mandibles. "Primitive monsters," they spat, voice trembling. "They've engineered warfare into instinct." Human fleet communications pulsed with a single coded phrase. "We do not kneel." The message transmitted across open frequencies, broadcast intentionally for every alien ship to hear. A sudden counterattack erupted from the Council formation, but the Terran fleet adapted again, ships rearranging into overlapping defense grids, protecting the damaged Dauntless as though each vessel shared one heartbeat. The aliens' plasma storms dissipated against human armor that regenerated at molecular levels. Admiral Reyes gave one final order. "End this." The Terran rail batteries aligned. Energy spiked across 100 trajectories. In a single, silent instant, a beam of concentrated magnetics punched through the Council flagship's forward shield and ruptured its core. The explosion illuminated the solar plane brighter than dawn. When the light faded, the human fleet remained, silent, motionless, unbroken. Rhea's voice echoed across the comms, calm, absolute. "They asked for our submission. Now they'll remember our existence." Across the galaxy, countless species who had never dared dream of defiance saw that transmission and whispered the same word, as if rediscovering its meaning: human. The shock of defeat rippled across the galaxy before the Council could contain it. Their fleets, once symbols of absolute control, now drifted crippled around the blue world they had believed defenseless. Word spread faster than censorship could erase it. Worlds long oppressed by the Council's peacekeeping order were awakening to the truth that their masters could bleed. Every communication hub hummed with one whispered question: who are the humans? In the Council's emergency convocation, chaos replaced the usual ceremony. Voices overlapped, distorted through holographic interference. Some demanded the extermination of Earth before the story spread further. Others feared that another assault might fracture the Council's image permanently. The Chancellor's composure cracked as reports streamed in: their admirals lost, half their armada destroyed, and the remaining ships in full retreat. "An anomaly," one minister insisted. "Their victory was luck, strategy born from desperation." Yet even they could hear the tremor in their own voices. The galaxy watched, and so did the thousands of client races the Council had conquered over millennia. The humans had done what no one else dared: fought back and survived. Underground networks and distant systems began circulating fragments of battle footage: human warships emerging from Mars, alien dreadnoughts shattering under kinetic fire. For many, it wasn't merely a spectacle of power, it was proof that defiance was possible. In Earth's orbit, the aftermath was grim but resolute. Human fleets floated amid the debris field that once threatened their extinction. The Dauntless was crippled, its hull glowing with molten scars. The Yamato lay in fragments, its crew gone but their sacrifice already legend. Yet no one aboard the surviving ships spoke of retreat. They worked in silence, welding armor, rerouting power, scanning for survivors. Admiral Reyes stood unflinching as casualty reports filled her console. Every name weighed heavy, but her command tone never faltered. "We endure," she said quietly. "That's the price of freedom." On the alien side, Admiral Cyrix struggled to hold the remnants of their fleet together. Their voice, once the embodiment of authority, now wavered with disbelief. "How?" they hissed to their officers. "They shouldn't have been capable of this. They were still crawling across their own planet when we achieved light flight." But data spoke louder than arrogance: human adaptability, unconventional tactics, and technologies born from desperation had overwhelmed centuries of complacency. Cyrix, cornered and enraged, made one final choice. Prepare orbital bombardment. Burn the poles. End their atmosphere. If they won't kneel, they'll suffocate. It was a coward's command, born from humiliation rather than strategy. But before the bombardment began, every targeting system aboard the alien dreadnoughts blinked out. Screens filled with cascading human code. The fleet's own drones turned inward, locking weapons onto their masters. "They've infiltrated our systems!" shouted the communications chief. "Their encryption, how did they breach the command net?" The answer came in a broadcast that echoed across all channels, translated automatically by the very machines the Council had once used to dominate. Human voices filled the silence, not taunting, but calm, deliberate, and painfully human. "You came to enslave us," the transmission began. "Instead, you taught us how you think. You left your systems open because you never imagined we could learn faster than you." The alien fleet's bombardment collapsed into chaos as ships turned on each other, their own defense networks commandeered. Within minutes, what remained of the Council Armada was in retreat, engines flaring desperately toward the stars. Humanity had not just defeated them through force, they had dismantled the illusion of invincibility. Reyes ordered all weapons to stand by. "Let them run," she said. "They'll tell the story better than we ever could." Then, for the first time since the battle began, she opened a direct broadcast to the entire galaxy. Images of human history filled the feed: wars, ruins, rebuilding, laughter, art, exploration, and the endless cycle of destruction and recovery. Her words followed, simple and absolute. "We do not seek dominion. We seek respect. We fight because peace without freedom is slavery." The message spread far beyond Seoul. On worlds once crushed by the Council's rule, people lifted their heads and listened. On the Council's homeworld, silence reigned as the ruling class realized that control built on fear could not survive truth. The humans had done more than win a battle, they had changed the definition of power itself. By the time Earth's fleets withdrew to repair, the balance of the galaxy had shifted. For the first time in an age, the Council feared not extinction, but irrelevance. Humanity had proven that courage could outlast empire, and that the smallest world in the stars could ignite a revolution with nothing more than defiance and will. The war was over before the galaxy realized it had begun. What remained of the Council's fleet drifted in silence, wreckage orbiting the quiet blue sphere that had defied an empire. The final transmission from their command vessel echoed through fractured networks, a single sentence that would be replayed for generations. "Humanity cannot be conquered." That admission carried farther than any weapon ever could. Earth's orbit became a graveyard of twisted metal and shattered pride. Crews worked tirelessly among the debris, retrieving survivors from both sides. The surviving Council soldiers, stunned and trembling, expected vengeance. Instead, they were given water, warmth, and silence. No taunts. No cruelty. The humans did not return humiliation for humiliation, they returned discipline, because victory meant nothing if it became tyranny. Admiral Reyes oversaw the aftermath from the bridge of the Dauntless, its armor still scorched but operational. Reports poured in from across the solar system. Communication restored, casualties counted, the first steps of rebuilding already underway. Her voice was measured when she addressed the fleet. "We've proven ourselves in battle. Now we prove we can lead in peace." Her words were not triumphant. They were resolute, the language of survivors who understood the burden of victory. The Galactic Council, crippled and humiliated, reconvened in haste. Their chambers were no longer filled with arrogance but fear. Delegates demanded explanations, others demanded retaliation, but none had the will to act. Their armies were broken, their allies questioning loyalty. The Chancellor, who once mocked the idea of human equality, now signed an emergency declaration recognizing Earth as a sovereign and equal member of the Council. No conditions. No demands. The decree was carried across 1,000 systems with trembling voices. "Humanity is acknowledged as an independent power." The news reached every corner of the galaxy. worlds that had endured centuries of quiet servitude celebrated in hidden caves and silent cities. For the first time, the concept of rebellion no longer seemed like fantasy. Humanity had torn open a wound in the illusion of invulnerability, and the light spilling through it gave others reason to hope. In the halls of the shattered council, the Oriv delegate spoke a truth few dared to voice. "They did not win because of weapons," he said softly. "They won because they remembered what fear feels like and never wished to inflict it on others." The chamber fell silent. For the first time in its history, the council began to understand that domination was not the same as strength. On Earth, the world mourned its dead. Cities dimmed their lights for 1 hour, honoring those who stood against the impossible. From the ruins of the Yamato came the phrase that would echo through human culture for generations: "Stand free, or not at all." Statues were never built. Humanity didn't need monuments. They carried their memory in the unity that had saved them. When the first interspecies delegation arrived at Earth, they expected arrogance. Instead, they found calm pragmatism. Humanity did not boast of its victory. It offered treaties, resource exchanges, medical assistance for the wounded soldiers who had once invaded them. The act stunned the galaxy. Every empire that had used fear as law suddenly faced an opponent who commanded loyalty through compassion. Admiral Reyes delivered her final message to the Council and to the watching civilizations beyond. "You believed peace was something enforced by power. We learn it is something defended by those willing to sacrifice everything for it. We will not rule the stars. We will protect them from those who forget what they cost." The words were transmitted in every known dialect. Across distant systems, species once forgotten began to rise, organizing under banners that bore no symbols of conquest, only the image of a simple blue world and the motto, "For all who dare stand free." As the years passed, humanity became the paradox the galaxy could not comprehend: warriors who refused to conquer, engineers who built fleets yet sought no empire, diplomats who spoke softly but were feared by every tyrant. The Council itself reformed under human influence, transforming from an empire into a federation built on consent rather than control. In time, the galaxy forgot the exact number of ships that fought above Earth, but it never forgot what happened there. The name of the battle faded, but its meaning endured. Humanity had not sought dominion, it had demanded dignity and offered the same to others. The memory of that stand became legend, proof that freedom, once claimed, could never again be taken. And in the endless quiet of space, where once the Council expected submission, the stars carried a different message. A reminder spoken not in words, but in the presence of the fleet that watched over the void. Humanity stood, and because it stood, every world now dared to rise beside it.